Video is going to show a little bit about the layers panel in Photoshop, and we're going to play around in Photoshop, and we're going to start with this doggo one. So these doggo pictures are all from this site called Pexels, and I will put the link in the description, and I will put the link to these files in the description as well. So I'm going to just click and drag my doggo one into Photoshop, and I've got an enlarged version of Photoshop so it's easier to show you, but let's just make sure that we're all looking at our toolbar in the same way. So we've got it doubled up here. We can change it to a single row or a double row. We can make sure that we're in the Essentials default workspace. And I can always reset this workspace to make sure that we're the same. So if you're in the Essentials default, and you can do that by going to Window, down to Workspace, and changing your workspace. This is important. One of the most important things in the menu bar is Window. It allows you to change your workspace. It also allows you to bring up any panel that you may not have open initially, and it'll let you kind of open it up and put it in your workspace, and you can customize them and all that. And we're going to customize it to suit our needs today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this color tab out, and let's minimize it. So we can expand these panels. We can move them around. We can dock them on different parts of the workspace. It was here. I'm going to put my color over here and minimize it. I want to keep that. I want to put my swatches here and minimize. I want to keep those. I just want to move them for now. I think I'm going to be teaching you guys today, so we'll get rid of the learn, and we're going to keep the adjustments. We can get rid of the libraries. Let's pull the libraries out and exit out of that. Alright, this is history. I don't think we need to talk about that today. Let's get rid of it. Here is properties. That's an important one. We're going to keep that. And in fact, I'm going to undock adjustments and undock properties. We don't need to worry about channels today, so we're going to pull that out and get rid of it. And we're not going to talk about paths today, so we're going to get rid of that. So the main thing that we're going to talk about is going to be the layers panel, and we can move it up and down. The layers panel, you can use adjustments with that, and also properties works with that. So we're going to actually put adjustments and properties together in a tab group. So I'm going to pull them both open, and I'm going to bring this one in until I see the blue line. Now they're together in a tab, and when I minimize this, it's together. And I can dock this over here. I could dock it over here. You look at that little blue line. But really what I want to do with it is I want to dock it above my layers panel here. So I'm going to put my properties and my adjustments above my layers panel. You just gotta look for those blue lines, and now they're going to work together. It really depends on where you click. If I click here, I move everything. If I click here, I move the adjustments out. So I want to make sure those are in. So I need to make sure I'm grabbing in the right location. It's a little tricky. You got to kind of hold things over to get that blue line. Once I get my properties adjustments above my layers, I'm going to dock my panel over here, and I can even expand it so that my layer shows a little bit more. Layers panel, super important panel. Before we get started too much, I want to finish off my workspace, and I'm going to, let's do color and swatch together and dock those over here. So now we can bring up our swatches, we can bring up our color, we bring up one, we can toggle back and forth, and so on and so forth. So I've got my layers panel. That's what I want to talk about, because that's what we're going to use to kind of manipulate this doggo and make it look kind of neat. Talk about this layers panel, and there's a lot. Like, Photoshop can be very difficult because there's just so much going on. And oh, another thing I want you to tell you, oops, we're going to double up our toolbar. This is the setup I'd like you to have. So if you don't have this setup, work with that now to get it that way. You can even have your layers panel docked back over here on the side the way that we had it before. And we can talk about the layers panel over here, it's fine. And I'm going to actually go to Window, Workspace, and I am going to make a new workspace. And I'm just going to call it Livingston. We're going to have that to go back to if I want to. I can reset it. It's going to pop up here, so I could go to the photography setup and go back into my Livingston workspace right there. And it's going to be exactly the way we want it to. All right, so layers panel. This is what we want to focus on. Now, all panels have these little bars in the top right corner. That's like your options panel. It's like your options for the panel. You know, properties has one, layers has one. A lot of them do. Color, I can do things from here. I can pull up certain colors. I can pull up certain swatches. I can save certain swatches. I can do a bunch of stuff. So this is like your options menu here. And you can do a lot of those same things from the options menu by right-clicking inside the panel. On top of where you click is going to be depending on what you can do. For instance, if you right-click on this picture, you can't do as much as if you right-click somewhere else. Actually, we need to unlock this layer so that we can get all these options. So if I right-click on the text, it gives me all of these options, most of which can be found over here as well. And if I right-click on the picture, that just lets me change the thumbnail to be large. I like a large thumbnail because I usually work with my layers panel being quite big. In fact, I'm going to switch it up a little bit and dock my layers panel over here so we can kind of look at this side by side, because we're going to be using the properties and the layers kind of together, the adjustments and the layers kind of together. So I want to use both, but for now I can collapse this one and we can work with just the layers. So I've been moving my workspace around pretty freely. It's really interactive and great. You can make it suit your needs, and your needs may change depending on what job you're doing, but for this tutorial, this setup's going to work for us. So what we want to do is kind of take a look at what we've got here in the layers panel. And I want to tell you, ignore this section here. This section only filters out what layers are going to be visible to you as the designer. So image layers, layer adjustments, text layers. If I pick on one of these, I won't see my layer that's down here. It doesn't mean it's not in my document, but it's an image layer. So this just sorts all of your different, this just turns them all on or turns them all off. And if you turn them all off and say, I want to see my image layers, we're going to see that. So let's just leave them all on for now. We don't need to worry about this. Okay, so what we've got is a picture, and it's a JPEG, and that means it's made up of pixels. And that's all Photoshop is manipulating pixels and using different layers to get different effects and things like that. So there's so many things you can do with it. It's just only limited by your creativity. So this line is very important. This line, not so much. This line, not so much. This is very important. It's your options. Same thing when you right-click here. A lot of the same stuff. This down here is the most important section of the layers panel. This part down here is going to help us a lot, and we're going to use that today. So I know I've gone on and on, but this is a lot of information about the one specific panel, but this panel is the main thing of Photoshop. You need to really know this panel in order to know it. The tools we'll get to one by one as we use them, and they're equally as important, but this layers panel is in every single project that you will do in this program, so we need to know what it does and what to focus on, and that is this bottom part and this section right here. So we're going to create a new layer. We can do that by clicking on this little, looks like a page with a dog ear, and every time we click it, we'll make a new layer. So real quick, I want to talk about selecting things. So if I want to select more than one layer, I can hold the Command key, and I can pick and choose which layers to add. If I want to select a lot of things, I can hold the Shift key, and it will select everything in between those two selections. So if I have 4 selected, if I hold Shift and click 1, it's going to select everything in between. So I can hold Command and select just 3 out of the 5 or 2 out of the 5. And that works with anything, really. You can come over here and say, I just wanted these 2 dogs, and I didn't want all 3. So instead of clicking and dragging and getting all 3, you can click, hold Command, click the other one. I only need 1 layer, so I'm actually going to hold Shift, select all 3, and then the trash can deletes layers. Yes, I'm sure I want to delete it. The folder will make groups in which you can group your layers and put layers inside of groups, and you can name your groups, and you can do different effects to the groups, and you can show the group, and you can do this and that. We're not going to worry about groups today, so not a big deal. Alright, now I got to get this dog out of this group. Alright, come on, dog. You want out. There you go. And I'm going to delete this group. Delete group. Make new group. So this is what you need. You need layer above the dog. So we're going to come in here. I'm going to double click. We'll call him Doggo 1. Not Dogo. Doggo 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some color to this doggo. So we're going to start with this gradient tool. And you're going to notice every time you pick a tool, it changes what's up top. So every time I choose a different tool, my options up here change. So that can be confusing, but if you know that that's going to be the case, then you can account for it. So we click on the gradient tool, and we see a bunch of things up here. Now, this is going to give us some preset gradients that we can choose from. Let's choose the red-green one, sure. And then this is going to give us the type of gradient this is going to be. So this is a linear gradient. It will go from one side to the other. This is a radial gradient. It will radiate out from the middle. I don't know what you call this one. If I hover over it, might tell you. An angle gradient. It's up there for a second. So you can hover over things. It'll tell you what they are. Reflected gradient. See, like over here, magic wand. They might even give you a little bit of a something with it. This one's like the flare. But I'm going to go with a linear gradient. And I can change the gradient, make it go different ways, and it's going to keep the last one. So now you might say, well, I can't see the dog anymore. Well, that's because in the layers panel, we read things from the top to the bottom. And so you won't see the dog unless you can see through this layer, because the dog is underneath the layer. Okay, so we're going to keep this layer at 100, but I just wanted to show you that. And if we put the dog above the color, then we're not going to see the color unless we change the opacity of the dog. Right? We could do that a couple different ways. This does it to the whole layer. We could do it using a layer mask, which is this button. We're going to get into that. But we're going to put the color above the dog, and we're going to use a blending mode, which was this other part that I told you that we needed to know. This will blend the two layers together in a way that's unique to each mode. I like to use the overlay with black and white. So now that I have the overlay with black and white, I can actually come back and play around with this color a little bit more. And maybe I want to use this rainbow one. Let's see what that does. And let's try this one. That one's pretty. All right, so we can really quick get a unique look on this dog, which is nice. And we could change the opacity of that. We can make it really subtle. We can make it really vibrant. And we can do more with it. We can do anything with it, really. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys is a layer adjustment. And that is going to be this half moon cookie. Now this is a non-destructive way to edit an image, and we're going to edit the color. So we're going to go to hue saturation. Now this is handy, and see, it works with our properties menu. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to expand that so we can see. That's why we had to have properties out. This will change the color. So even though we've got purple to orange, I'm changing the color by using this. And this comes with a layer mask attached to it, which is a whole nother lesson, I think, because layer masks is very kind of in-depth in themselves. But that's this button here, makes layer masks, and basically that covers up certain parts of the image. And so this layer is changing the color of this layer. It is a layer adjustment, and you can apply it to everything underneath, or this button applies it just to the one underneath, which is what I want. I want this just to interact with this orange and purple color, because I want to bring the saturation down a little bit. Maybe bring the lightness of the whole image up and just play around with it that way. So you can see the difference that layer makes. It's kind of subtle. It's making it subtle. And that's what's called a layer adjustment. Now you can play around with different things. For instance, the levels, the black and white levels, you can bring those up and down. You can play around with how this image looks, which I think is a lot of fun. So let's do this on the next dog. So doggo 2, we're going to drag him, drop him into Photoshop. We got our same setup, which is beautiful. This is perfect. So the step was we're going to unlock this. I'm going to call this doggo 2. Just kind of showing you that we can name layers. It's good to keep organized. I'm going to make a new layer, and I am going to use my gradient tool. And you might have a paint bucket tool there. I forgot to mention that. Every time you see a tool with a little triangle in the bottom right hand side, that means there's more tools under that tool set. And you can access those tools by right clicking or clicking and holding. That's kind of important, and I should have mentioned that. So you might have a paint bucket, and you can right click to get to the gradient tool. That's very important. So let's see what this pup's gonna be. You want to be a neon pup? Let's see. So you can see how the multiply brings the dog through. So different things are going to react with the image in different ways. We used overlay on the last one, and I think overlay looks really nice. Soft light looks kind of nice. Makes it look kind of fuzzy. And this is called a blending mode. Pretty cute. I think I'm going to keep it with overlay. And instead of green, so I could click on the gradient itself, and I can change the color. And I can change how much it gradiates until I get a gradient that I like, and I draw my new gradient. Oh, it kind of ends really suddenly. I don't like that. So let's see. Let's start with black to white, and let's change the black to purple. And let's change the white to a different kind of purple. And we got purple to purple. Let's see how that works. Not bad. Maybe a different blending mode might make it look kind of neat. So if you have a picture of a dog or cat or something, we can make it look kind of fun pretty quickly. Add some color to it really, really quickly. So let's see doggo 3. And let's go ahead and this time actually we're going to open doggo 3. So if you made a new document and you placed this in it, that would be fine, but you really kind of want to open the picture in Photoshop. The difference is when you open this picture, this is a big, big file, and it's going to be about 64 inches in length. That's large, so just open it in that so that we can make it as high quality as possible. So I always unlock the layer first, and this time we want to make it black and white, just like the other ones. So we have to use a layer adjustment to do that. The reason we use a layer adjustment is because a layer adjustment is non-destructive. In other words, I can click this and bring the color back to the dog. If I get rid of the color in a destructive way, which would mean that I was going to eliminate the color totally and couldn't get it back, I could change my image mode to grayscale, and that would get rid of all the color, but I couldn't bring it back. In this case I can, because I can undo, but once I save the file I cannot bring that color back. So you never want to destructively edit, you always want to non-destructively edit, and you can do that using layer masks and layer adjustments. So we're going to do a layer adjustment of a black and white, and then let's do a layer adjustment of levels, and let's darken this pup up a little bit and maybe get rid of some of the light gray.